Broussard from Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today I'm going to do a tonalist watercolor painting demonstration. This is going to be a fast and loose one, as per usual. In front of me I have an 11 by 15 quarter sheet of Stonehenge Aqua. I just took water and passed it over with the Hake brush, so this surface is all wet. I did that in order to first of all stretch the paper out so I could do a wet painting, and also did it before I turned on the camera just to essentially speed the videos up so you don't have to watch me do that. And then on the palette, which I wound up doing a quick impromptu video, like a 5-minute video, where I showed how you can use just a razor blade to lift up paint and readjust it on the palette. With this one, we're going to use sap green and Venetian red. We're going to mix those two to get a brown, and we're also going to have green tones and red tones from it. And because of a drying shift that takes place whenever we're working with those two colors, I like to incorporate phthalo blue and ultramarine to kind of push that green in different directions. And I also have Payne's gray on there. All the brands are Da Vinci brand, besides the phthalo blue. I believe that is the Van Gogh brand. Whatever brand you want to use, that works. If you don't have Venetian red, you can probably substitute that with light red oxide. There is a difference between the two, but they're both the same pigment, PR 101, I believe. But if you look here, this is a light red oxide, and this is Venetian red, so there is some difference to it. So I'm going to get this mixture, and I got this mixture from Stuart Davies, and I believe Dennis Sheehan uses this as well. There are two tonalist oil painters, contemporary oil painters, and essentially they'll just take this mixture and throw it in and create kind of a, just throw it in, make a landscape from it and let it flow. And that's what we'll do here. I think I had something in mind prior to this, and then I just totally went in a different direction. So what I'm going to do is build up textures and tonal values and work on just creating the illusion of a landscape. Whenever I paint, I try to go to the edge of the paper, and this, even though a mat might sit over it one day, it will hopefully give me the feeling that it's extending off in both directions as opposed to just being in that center. The paper does swell a little bit. However, this paper, which is 100% cotton, I find that it is able to relax a lot more. In my other videos, most recently, you'll see that I'm experimenting with some tinted paper from a different brand, Bockingford. That paper is 100% alpha cellulose, and I find that using this wetting technique, I have a hard time getting the paper to relax. So I think there is a difference, between those two materials. I'm just mixing this back and forth and building up. Right now it's just those two colors. Anyway, but I'll tell you right now that the tinted paper brings something to the table that the untinted paper does not. And it is a little fun change of pace. However, it does, it takes some getting used to. And as you paint, you'll find paper that you like. I originally started off with a store brand watercolor paper, and if it's just a cheap store brand watercolor paper, I recommend that you move away from that if that's what you're using. That paper pills very easily, meaning like if you think of wet paper and how it falls apart and lifts up, that's pilling, and that happens with that paper. But of course, if that's all that you have, then obviously that's what you can use. Then I moved on to a paper that was a 75% alpha cellulose, 25% cotton mix, which is very common in the art circles that I'm in. I can't think of the name of the Fabriano makes that one, that 75%, 25%. I'll make this video talking about papers while I just put in these darks and create these shapes. So there is that combination right there, and like I said, the art groups that I'm in, that's used a lot. Ron Ranson art group, so that's a Facebook page I'm a part of that has some really great people in it. I think I had heard that paper from Joe Menza, Stephen Cronin, and other people. The people that I'm mentioning are people that make YouTube videos and do painting in a Hake style like this. I think Ron Ranson himself used a paper like that. I'm letting this recede back. So I'm making kind of a waterway right here. Let's see. Then I had gotten Canson 100% cotton paper and Arches, which oddly enough, if you're watching this, chances are you're in America watching this. I don't know why I'm saying that, but I find that a lot of other watercolor painters in this style are in other countries, and they have a lot better accents than me, and I would listen to them all day before listening to me. So you may have not just probably haven't discovered the how awesome the British accents are, and the people painting those and teaching in that format, listening to them is fantastic. Okay, I'm going to mix some ultramarine blue into this. I mix it in for the back color, the background. I grabbed a lot just now. I think I bet ultramarine blue right there. Should be. Okay. So you kind of see how it shifts it some. Anyway, where was I? So I moved on to the Arches and the Canson paper, I think for two reasons. That was me moving into 100% cotton, and it was also available at the local Hobby Lobby. And if you have a Hobby Lobby, you know that they have a 40% off coupon off of one item. So I'd buy pads of that paper, usually like a 9x12, and then I would paint on that. And then I started learning to go masking it off to 8x10 so that it would fit nice underneath the mat. Okay. Then I think at Hobby Lobby they had some large sheets of paper. So I tried a coupon on that on a Moulin du Roi paper. That was okay. That was also 100% cotton paper. It wasn't the best for me. At the time, I did experiment with rough paper, cold press paper, maybe a little bit of hot press, but I found hot press isn't really for me. Then on Blick.com, where I order a lot of art supplies, they had, you know, a few different brands, and I just ordered a few different ones, and I found that there were differences. Like, I had trouble with different brands of paper, even though they were 100% cotton, or I didn't like the texture of the paper that kind of showed through at the end. Some brands that I've tried, I think, were Fabriano, the Winsor Newton, you know, there's just a few, and I just wasn't really feeling them. How I got into the Stonehenge Aqua, I'm really not sure, but I don't know, I just felt like it was a good price point for me. I think that was one of the things I was saying at the time. I was like, okay, it was a good price point, because it was about the cheaper end of 100% cotton. It was around the price range of the Moulin de Roy and who else? The B watercolor paper. I'm gonna scrape, I think, I might scrape some shapes out in the back. We'll see. I'm gonna put some color up in here, at least tone, and then I might just drag it down and blot it out. I haven't done any blotting or texturing yet. I've just been kind of rambling. Everything's still wet and wet. If I want, I can do a little texture. When you do this, be careful of repeated textured patterns. You can get sharp edges here and make things nice, or you can get soft edges. And whenever you paint over these spots, keep in mind that you removed water from them, so you're going to get hard edges in those areas. You could also backfill if you want. Anyway, so this paper had sat at a price point that I liked, and it would relax for me after the wetting. It would sit flat. Sometimes if I go really, really, really heavy with the paint, it does give me trouble. So there is that. I think I'm gonna scrape a little building back here. I'm just taking a flat edge of a card. And now I just buy my paper in bulk. Buy them at least 10 sheets at a time. That works out. And I tear it into quarters. So that is the long and exciting story of me coming across this paper. I mentioned the paper brand a lot, just because that's, you know, a common question that people have and that I had when I was painting. This is just Payne's Gray, just to put a little accent next to it. I probably should have put it on the other side, but we'll see. So this will kind of just shape it some, as if it has trees surrounding it. But yeah, so I went through a long phase of experimenting and looking for the perfect paper for me. And I think it's a combination of price and the actual material that's made out of. Let me lift up a little bit of textures in here. We could lift in trunks and whatnot, but I don't think we'll do that. We'll just start building up. In fact, I can mix my Payne's Gray into this mixture and get it darker as well. And we'll do that. I don't know if I mentioned it, but you know, I do mention the paint brand a lot, but I'm not like sponsored by them or anything like that. But imagine how crazy it would be to be sponsored by like a paint company, like any sort of thing. I become a fanboy of a certain brand of art supplies. You know, I use the fountain pen inks, and I like the platinum ink, and I like The Noodler's ink a lot. You know, I have a big collection of that I utilize. Fountain pens. You know, there's certain brands that I like. I like to collect and restore them and utilize fountain pens. In fact, tomorrow, with the whole COVID thing, we've been out of work and I'm a school teacher. And I had done this thing that I accidentally had started called like fountain pens in the classroom, where some kids, I used fountain pens and some kids started asking about them. So I started giving out some like really cheap fountain pens from my collection from China. And I posted online about it and people were like, oh, this is amazing. And I had people from all over the world. Oh, a good shout out. There's a company in England or the UK called Loft Pens, L-O-F-T, and they sell on eBay and all that. I think they have an actual physical store, but I don't know what things are like in England right now. And they had sent me a huge box of just various pens, refills and all that, and to give to kids. And these were like really cool. I think they were Chinese made pens, but still they were really great quality ones, and really awesome stuff. So just a shout out to them. But yeah, so people throughout the world sent me pens, fountain pens for the students, and I set up a little refill station. I'd have kids that weren't my students, because I teach in high school, so I teach 11th and 12th, and I'd have freshmen come in, and they'd say, hey, you got any of those cool pens in, or you get any of those pens in? And I'd give them out, and I'd have kids come in at lunch to refill their pens, and we'd get some cool fancy ones, and we would have, you know, quiet kids who were like doing good, and me and my inclusion teacher were like, hey, you know, you have beautiful handwriting, you want to try a fountain pen, things like that, you ever use a fountain pen? And we would give out like cool, unique ones. So it was really, really, really fun. But anyway, oh yeah, so where was I going with that? Tomorrow I have to go to my classroom to essentially clean it up for the summer, because on March 13th, which was a Friday, we had suddenly got a directive from the Louisiana government saying, hey, schools are going to be closed until, let's say it was like April 13th, so like a month. And we were like, oh damn, oh dang. So I think I just cleared out my fridge. I work with my sandwich meats. And we just, you know, left. And then it got extended to the end of April, the shutdown, and then the school was out for the year. And this would be the second to last week of school. So I have to go in and clean up my classroom, and I'll have to film a video thanking everybody about you know, helping and sending and all that, kind of wrapping up that project. It's been a long year. A lot of good things happen, a lot of interesting things. And I have some pens that I was using that I think, I'm curious if they dried up or not, the platinum desk pens. I teach math, and I enjoyed giving overhead lecture notes where I had a what's called the document camera, where it's filmed like this and then it projects it up on the board. And I liked writing out notes for each class. It was fun, and I thought it helped me like kind of pace things out, and it helped me think differently within the moment as I taught and whatnot. Some kids liked it, and some kids didn't, so I tried a variety of things. But it was fun. Sorry that this is a rambling video. If you have any questions about what I did, you're gonna have to comment down below, or message. This is taking a phthalo blue into this mixture, and when I use that in this palette, I use it for things that are going to be closer, and I guess for me phthalo blue is warmer than the ultramarine, and that's why I do that. I think I might scrape out a tree right here. I'm gonna go perpendicular to the, to the direction of the tree, so I'm scraping against. And if you find that patterns are too repetitive, you can soften them up. Grouping the trees right here. You could also scrape for grass. You grab some Payne's Gray and put it in while it's still wet and wet. I can take this and put in a wet and wet foliage. This will soften up, and then as we do another layer on top, yeah, right here, dried, because we had lifted the water out. But it'll give us variety and texture in the tree itself. And we're going to come back over it once we dry with some interest, some more textured. You could pull out more trunks, branches if you want. You can go in the background if you want, back here, some light stuff. Experiment with scraping. That'll really help you learn about wet and wet and judging what's going on within the water itself and the paper. It's kind of cool because it kind of mimics back there. So let's do a dry off. We're gonna then use the rigger brush to put in, and then some more foliage, and then we should be done. But as we do this dry off, watch how things shift. So a few things. Whenever you do a dry off, be wary of the this is a building door back here. You want to be wary of areas that are drying way quicker than others, or areas that are staying wet way quicker than others. Reason being is, as that happens, you can start getting kind of that weird cauliflower edges. And even though sometimes we try to get those, I personally haven't found that it works well during that dry off. So watch out for that. I'm just taking my dark mix with the rigger back here and just adding a little contrast, a little bit more excitement back here. Also, the dry off that I had said, watch for the shift. If it doesn't show up that well in the video, what happens is the water is leaving the paint. And whenever you have that happen, you start getting a lighter tonal value, and it makes things soft. It's a really cool effect, but sometimes, you know, if you have everything in place and it does that, and you're like, oh, that's not what I wanted. Everything's a lot lighter than I had started with. And the reason that happens, like I said, the water's leaving. And just think about concrete. If you have wet concrete, it looks darker, and then when it dries, it lights up. What's happening scientifically is you have your light being refracted, refracted through the water, and then it changes differently as it passes through. I believe that's the case. I don't know. I haven't taught school in 2 months because of all that, so maybe that's not the reason why. But I think that's the reason I was quote. Anyway. And like I said, that's why I add the ultramarine and my phthalo blue into this palette, because the soft, the shift that takes place is so stark, it's so drastic. I find that those kind of help. I haven't used the phthalo green and quinacridone gold, quinacridone rose combination in a while, which I'll have to use soon. I've been spending a lot of time with gouache and portrait drawing and all that stuff, and trying to expand my skill set, but I'm trying to do a lot of painting a day, and I'll do that phthalo blue combination soon. It's that phthalo green one. The phthalo green and the quin rose, it doesn't have as big of a shift when it dries. We don't get the browns that we get from this complementary pair, but we do get a nice dark gray. It's very beautiful effect, and it works really well towards the tonalism. In fact, I did get these colors in gouache, these 2 palettes in gouache, to try out, and we'll see how that works. Oh, by the way, speaking of art supplies, I always have to give my little pitch. Hey, if you like this content and you want to help keep this channel going, I have a Patreon account linked below. I would love for you to consider joining it. I have 2 simple tiers. One of them is a $2 or $3 tier, and it's just to help with art supplies. The other one, another simple cheap tier, which is I think $5, and I have exclusive content on there for patrons for that. If you do not want to, or are incapable of joining the Patreon, I understand. No hard feelings. I would love for you to simply just like, subscribe, follow, and to interact with this channel. I try to answer questions in a timely fashion if somebody asks down below. I also have other social media that you can find me on. I think all that's down below as well. Good, we got all that out the way. I'm liking this one. This is fun. This is like my relax palette where, and it's a different painting approach than some of my other videos, but it's just like my relax, have fun. That's why I was just talking about fountain pens in the classroom, talking about different like papers. Like this palette and this approach is, not to get all like philosophical, I guess it's me, you know, just it's the extension of myself where everything just seems to work well. And I encourage you to give it a try, but I encourage you to find out which one you like. These colors might not be up your alley. I mean, it is kind of dark and gloomy. It's inspired by the tonalist movement, the painting movement of the 1880s to 1920s America. And, you know, people in that movement were George Enes and who else? Yeah, George Enes and Whistler. It was also happening in France. They call it the Barbizon school of painting. And there are Russian painters that had fallen within that as well. All I'm is just taking this in with this Hake brush, and this is putting in that texture that I was talking about over that foliage where we had done the wet and wet, and then we do that in order to just kind of get a different depth and feel to it. And you can pick around with it. One thing I do want to eventually play around with in this palette is black gouache. I used some of it in a watercolor, it was yesterday's watercolor, or 2 days ago. And it just came out really well. It didn't have as much of a drying shift as I had I've experienced with the watercolor. And yeah, let's just do a dry off. Let's call this one, let's almost call this one done. Let me make sure everything looks nice and tight and right. Okay, let's do a dry off. I'm going to put a mat over it, I'll sign it, and then I will sign off. Let me grab a pen to sign with. Actually, I got a fountain pen right over there. There we go. Right on top. And there you go. All right, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all soon. Have a great day. Bye.